Imagine being stripped of everything you hold dear: your family, your home, your freedom, even your name. Now imagine finding a reason to keep living anyway. This is exactly what happened to Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived 4 Nazi concentration camps and turned his suffering into one of the most powerful books ever written. Man's Search for Meaning has sold over 16 million copies worldwide and has been voted one of the 10 most influential books in America. But this isn't just another self-help book telling you to think positively. It's a guide that shows you how to find purpose even in your darkest moments. Today, we're diving deep into Frankl's life-changing philosophy and why his message is more relevant than ever. If you've ever felt lost, overwhelmed, or wondered what the point of it all is, this review might just change how you see your entire life. So stick around because we're about to explore ideas that have helped millions of people transform their suffering into strength. Let me start with Viktor Frankl's story because it's unlike anything you've probably heard before. Before World War II, Frankl was a successful psychiatrist in Vienna with a thriving practice and a loving family. Then everything changed overnight. The Nazis deported him, his wife, and his parents to concentration camps, where most of his family would eventually die. But here's what makes Frankl's story unique. He didn't just survive the camps, he observed them. Even while starving, freezing, and watching people die around him, his mind was working. He was studying human behavior under the worst conditions imaginable. What he discovered would revolutionize psychology forever. Inside those camps, Frankl noticed something remarkable. Even though everyone faced the same brutal conditions, the same guards, the same starvation, the same terror, people responded completely differently. Some prisoners gave up hope and died within weeks. Others became cruel and selfish, doing anything to survive. But then there were those who chose something else entirely. Frankl wrote about prisoners who walked through the barracks, comforting others and giving away their last piece of bread. These people had somehow found a way to remain human in the most inhuman conditions. This led Frankl to his most important discovery. The Nazis could take almost everything from the prisoners: their homes, their identities, their loved ones, even their bodies. But there was one thing they could never take away: the freedom to choose how to respond. Even in those horrific circumstances, people still had the power to decide their attitude. They could choose dignity over despair, compassion over cruelty, hope over hopelessness. This became the foundation of everything Frankl would teach for the rest of his life. He called it the last human freedom. But Frankl noticed something else, too. The prisoners who survived the longest weren't necessarily the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who had something meaningful to live for. Maybe it was a loved one waiting for them at home. Maybe it was an unfinished book they wanted to write. Maybe it was simply the belief that their suffering could help others someday. Whatever it was, having a reason to live kept them alive when their bodies should have given up. This is where Frankl's philosophy gets really powerful. Most people think happiness is the goal of life. We're constantly told to pursue, choose, and find happiness. But Frankl discovered something different. He realized that happiness isn't something you can chase directly. It's like trying to force yourself to laugh at a joke that isn't funny. The harder you try, the more fake it becomes. Instead, happiness is a byproduct of something deeper, meaning. When your life has purpose, when you're serving something bigger than yourself, happiness naturally follows. This is why so many wealthy, successful people still feel empty inside. They have everything our culture says should make them happy, but they lack purpose. Frankl called this feeling the existential vacuum, a sense of meaninglessness that no amount of money, status, or pleasure can fill. So, how do you find meaning in your life? Frankl identified 3 main ways. First, through creative values, what you contribute to the world. This could be your work, your art, the way you raise your children, or how you help your community. It's about giving something valuable to the world around you. Second, through experiential values, what you receive from the world. This means opening yourself to love, beauty, truth, and connection. It's about appreciating a sunset, cherishing time with family, or being moved by a piece of music. Third, and most importantly, through attitudinal values, how you face unavoidable suffering. This is where Frankl's philosophy becomes truly transformative. We all face suffering in life: loss, illness, failure, disappointment. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. When you choose to face your difficulties with courage, dignity, and compassion, you transform your suffering into something meaningful. You become an example to others of what's possible in the face of hardship. Now, Frankl turned these insights into a new form of therapy called logotherapy. While Freud believed humans were driven by pleasure and Adler thought we were driven by power, Frankl argued that we're primarily driven by the search for meaning. Logotherapy helps people discover their unique purpose in life. Instead of focusing on past traumas or trying to eliminate all problems, it helps you find meaning in your current situation. One technique Frankl used is called dereflection. When people become obsessed with their problems, their anxiety, their depression, their failures, they get stuck in a cycle of self-focus. Dereflection means shifting your attention away from yourself and toward something meaningful. Maybe it's helping a friend through a difficult time. Maybe it's working on a project you care about. Maybe it's simply being fully present with your family. When you stop obsessing over your problems and start serving something bigger, your problems often lose their power over you. Another technique is paradoxical intention. This involves doing the opposite of what your fear tells you to do. If you're afraid of not sleeping, you try to stay awake. If you're afraid of making a mistake, you deliberately make small ones. Often, this approach reduces the anxiety around the fear and breaks the cycle of avoidance. But how does all this apply to your life today? Let's get practical. Maybe you're dealing with job stress, relationship problems, health issues, or just a general sense that something is missing from your life. Frankl's philosophy offers a different way to approach these challenges. Instead of asking, "How can I be happy?" or "How can I avoid suffering?" you start asking, "What is this situation asking of me?" Every difficulty in your life is essentially a question that life is posing to you. Your job isn't to avoid the question, but to answer it in the most meaningful way possible. Lost your job? Maybe this is life asking you to discover what you really want to contribute to the world. Going through a difficult relationship? Perhaps this is an opportunity to learn about love, forgiveness, and commitment. Dealing with illness? This might be teaching you about courage, acceptance, and what really matters. I'm not suggesting that suffering is good or that you should seek it out. Frankl was very clear about this. Unnecessary suffering should be eliminated whenever possible. But when suffering is unavoidable, when it's simply part of the human condition, you have a choice. You can let it crush you, or you can let it teach you. The difference lies in the meaning you assign to it. One of the most powerful examples Frankl gives is about two men he counseled who had lost their wives. Both were devastated and considering suicide, but Frankl helped them reframe their situation. He asked them to imagine how much their wives would have suffered if they had died first. By surviving their wives, these men were sparing the women they loved from that pain. Their suffering suddenly had meaning. It was an act of love. This didn't make the pain go away, but it made it bearable. It transformed meaningless suffering into meaningful sacrifice. This is the power of Frankl's approach. It doesn't promise to eliminate your problems or make everything easy. Instead, it shows you how to find purpose in whatever situation you're facing. And when you have purpose, you develop resilience. You become capable of handling things you never thought you could handle. Think about the current challenges in your own life. What if instead of trying to escape them or fix them immediately, you asked what they might be teaching you? What if your struggles are actually opportunities to develop qualities like patience, compassion, strength, or wisdom? What if the very things you're trying to avoid are the keys to becoming who you're meant to be? Frankl's message is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it reminds us that we don't control everything that happens to us. Life will present us with loss, disappointment, and pain whether we want it or not. But empowering because it shows us that we always have a choice in how we respond. We are not victims of our circumstances. We are the authors of our response to those circumstances. This doesn't mean putting on a fake smile or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means choosing to meet your difficulties with courage, dignity, and purpose. It means looking for ways to grow, to serve, to love, even in the midst of hardship. The beautiful thing about Frankl's philosophy is that it works at every level. Whether you're dealing with major trauma or just the everyday frustrations of modern life, the same principles apply. You always have the freedom to choose your attitude. You can always look for meaning in your situation. You can always serve something bigger than yourself. And when you do these things, you'll find that happiness often follows naturally. Not the shallow happiness of getting everything you want, but the deep satisfaction that comes from living with purpose. Viktor Frankl spent only a few months writing Man's Search for Meaning after his liberation from the concentration camps. But the ideas in that book have now helped millions of people for over 75 years. Why does this message continue to resonate with so many people? Because at some point, every single one of us faces moments that test our will to keep going. We all encounter loss, failure, disappointment, and pain. Frankl's gift to us is showing that these moments don't have to destroy us. They can actually become the source of our greatest strength and deepest meaning. Remember, you cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can always control your response. In that response lies your freedom, your dignity, and your power to create meaning even in the darkest times. If this video resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. What challenges are you facing right now, and how might you approach them differently after hearing Frankl's message? Don't forget to like this video if it was helpful and subscribe for more content about books that can change your life. And remember, your life is not asking you to be perfect or to avoid all suffering. It's asking you to respond to whatever comes your way with courage, compassion, and purpose. That's a challenge worthy of any human being, and it's one that you are absolutely capable of meeting. If you enjoy thoughtful reflections like this, I also write about books, mindfulness, and purposeful living on my blog, The Zen Journal. The link is below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.